Hello, Herlighters. It's Erin Foley back in the booth talking women's sports. Happy New Year. We're about a week into the new year. If you made resolutions, I hope you're sticking to them. I do not make resolutions. I gave that up years ago because obviously I would, put something down on paper and then, about 3 weeks in, completely give up on them. And that would make me feel like a big bowl of crap. So no more resolutions. Instead, what I've been doing for the past couple of years, instead of resolutions, I do intentions. I choose 3 words that describe ways I want to be this year. Sidebar, my partner Sarah's a life coach, and all of this stems from her. As if anyone thought I could come up with this. Anyway, here's my 3 words: ease, strength, and connection. Ease, because I make everything harder all the time, or I think everything is going to be harder than it is, which stops me a lot of times from starting these things. So I definitely have to work on that. I want so much more ease. Strength. Apparently, as soon as you hit midlife, your bones just, I don't know, crumble and your hips get stiff and then you fall over and die. So I got to lift weights. That's obvious. I mean, I've lifted weights before, but I mean, like, really go for it. And mental strength, but that's for another podcast. And the last word, connection. Okay, so my favorite thing about last year was connecting with people in the women's sports community. These are my people, okay? And I just want to hang out with them more. I want to hang out with them, all the time. And even though, yes, I'm not a fan of social media, I connected with my guest today via Instagram, and she's been on my bucket list for a very long time. Ladies and germs, please sit down. Please stand up. It's Hall of Famer Rebecca Lobo. I mean, come on. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about starting 2025 with a motherfucking bang. And it's also my 300th episode. I mean, I didn't plan it, right? Like I just kind of lined up that way that Rebecca was going to be the guest on this episode. Listen, it's all meant to be. It's all written. I think people say that. Listen, as you will hear, Rebecca Lobo is a national treasure. It was so fun to formally meet her. Because I grew up a UConn fan, and I remember watching her in the championship game in 1995 and then the Olympics in 96. And then I lived in New York City and went to all of her Liberty games. So having the opportunity to talk hoops with her after all these years was super, super cool. And she's got the best personality, right? She's so easy to talk to. Our conversation covered everything from her playing days to watching her daughter's volleyball games to Hallmark movies. We talked about it all. You're going to love her. So let's jump right in. You've been commentating for a long time, total pro. Now, obviously, I've been to, a gazillion Liberty games, but been to the Garden in 97 and now Barclays. Does it feel like we're back to the energy of old school MSG?
Yeah, for sure back to that energy. Although the vibe in New York now is unlike anything I've ever experienced, whether I was as a player or covering the league in any other place, including New York. Like and in other arenas, people go and to be entertained by basketball. I feel like New York Liberty fans go to Barclays to party. And it's not just during the action, which is phenomenal, and they're great fans for that, but no one does a better job with game presentation than the New York Liberty. Like sometimes what's happening in the timeouts and at halftime is just as exciting and energizing as anything that's happening during the actual game action. It's phenomenal. As anyone who's gone to a game understands, there's just a different energy and vibe in New York. And part of it is, the mix of celebrities that come and sit courtside or the people they come to actually perform at halftime. The dancing crew that's been around since I was a player, Timeless Torches. So the whole thing is just different there, and a different energy than anything I've ever seen throughout the last 30 years in the league.
Wow, that's really interesting. The Timeless Torches, by the way, that's my backup plan. That is an absolute bucket list. If I keep stretching and going to my yoga classes in the morning, I go
Can,
once a week, barely.
let me just say, not this year, but last year in the playoffs, because we go to shoot arounds in the morning. So if there's a game in the evening, we're going, 10 to 11, one of the teams practices, then 11 to 12, the other team practices. anyway, we're there, and I think it may have been after one of those practices, and the timeless torches were doing like a rehearsal or practicing and whatever. And I have this video of Holly Rowe off to the side, like trying to learn the choreography as they're doing it. So you and Holly can do the timeless torches together when you're when you're both old and looking to dance.
I will do the timeless torches tomorrow with
Right.
Holly. That would be just me, Holly Rowe, and then Ellie.
Yeah.
Just trying to.
Nobody can keep up with Ellie.
Oh my
Nobody.
God. I know you know this, but the obsession on like all my group chats and like talking to everybody, like far long after the season has gone on, we're like, who is Ellie? But like we're just, we have bets, and I'm like, I just am obsessed that for me, it's a black gay man. That he's walking around the city like just nobody knows. And I'm like, how do you just get on the subway and, does he have a real job? Like we're all obsessed. It's
He's
amazing.
got he or she
Yeah.
has to be that's a full-time employee by now, like such a
Right.
celebrity. And what it's like I don't know if it's game two of the finals, and Coach Oriema has come to watch, Stewie and Nafisa, and the entire coaching staff is there. And then after the game, some of the assistant coaches come down and they say hello to me and give me a hug, and they're like, we really only came down so you would introduce us to Ellie. I'm not kidding. So I did. They got their pictures with Ellie. I'm like, really? Haven't seen you guys in months. Hello, give you a hug. But yeah, you only came down so I'd introduce you to Ellie. So that's all right though.
Oh my God. I love that. Yeah, there really is no better. I mean, I know I'm biased, like, from New York, but just having all those years at the Garden and now coming back. I mean, yeah, it was a dark time. I kept saying, the Liberty were playing in a rec hall in Ronkonkoma. Like I've said that, and I just was like, I can't believe this is happening. This is like the storied franchise. So it really, to go to Barclays now when I'm visiting New York, it really is like just full circle. All right, we're going to get into a controversial subject. It's not. Um,
Uh-oh.
Sabrina hits the three.
Yes,
Ryan Rook. First of all, I love Ryan, and we'll get to him. I mean,
he's the
I
best.
I finally have gotten my partner Sarah to like now she really actually likes watching the WNBA. Like she's kind of forced to watch at times. And she's fallen in love with Ryan. And then when like she's having a bad day or something happens, I go, you bet. And like it cheers her up. So high five for him. High five
And
him for me.
that's actually a really good intonation on the you bet too.
Oh
Well
yeah.
done.
Oh, I've practiced. I've practiced. But Sabrina hits the three, and he's like, the greatest shot in Liberty history. And I go, oh, and Teaspoon's probably like 10 feet away. And what's your opinion? The greatest, is it the Teaspoon shot or is the Sabrina shot?
What did he say could be? He may have said could be. I don't know. So he right after that game, he looked at me and he said, "Was that okay?" And I said, "Well, if they go on to win the finals, it will be."
Yeah.
I think Spoon's shot will always be the most iconic because it was, three-quarter court, and just for years that was the defining shot of the early years of the WNBA. But because the Liberty did go on and win the championship, I think this one probably is the most important for sure, because it led to their first title.
Yeah, I've spent just too much time thinking about this, quite frankly. Really talking about it to no one, just myself, just rocking in the corner. Uh, I'm gonna say it's a tie. I'm gonna say it's a tie. It's very hard for me to say it's not Teaspoon shot because like that's gonna be like my favorite team of all time. But that's Sabrina's shot. I mean, that was so ballsy. Holy crap. Like she
Yeah.
wasn't even shooting that well. Then we found out later, she has four broken fingers or whatever it was, and then just launches that.
Yeah, yeah, it was epic, and to do it on the other team's home floor, just like Spoon did hers. What's crazy when you go back to think about Spoon's, like game three was the next day. It was like a back to back. All right, you're the highest of highs. Now go try to win this game and see if you can win the championship.
Do you still hate the city of Houston? Do you like I can't go? Like how do you or have you recovered?
It's funny. I was traded to the Houston Comets in
Oh, that's right. I
2002.
forgot about that.
So I played a season there, and I loved living. I mean, Houston in the summertime might not be the best in terms of the climate. I loved living there. The fans were incredible. They were still playing at the Compact Center at that time. I think now that's a mega church. but the fans were great. I loved it there. And of course, that's one of the years they didn't win the championship was when when I joined them. So yeah, I sort of had the cleansing period the year that I actually wore the Comets uniform.
I forgot about that. I just always just I know you played for Connecticut too. I just always in my mind it's like always going to be the Liberty.
Yeah.
Um all right, so let's talk about that time period real quick. You know, just because now I think a lot of people and also a lot of new fans they think, oh, well, there's a clear path now for collegiate players to, turn pro. You've got multiple leagues now. You can play overseas. I mean, first of all, it's just fantastic. But in 95, you go undefeated. You're the best player in the world. Like, what were your options?
My option was to go overseas. I was a political science major in college, and my path and my plan was always, all right, I'll go overseas and play for a few years, like Italy or Japan. That's where you could play and make some decent money, and I'll save up my money and I'll come back and go to law school. Like that was the thing, because broadcasting wasn't an option. There was only a handful of women's games on a year in those days. And then I tried out for the 96 national team that became the Olympic team. I didn't think that was going to be my time. I thought like 2000, when I was a little bit more seasoned as a professional, would be my best opportunity to make an Olympic team. But all of a sudden, it's not just an Olympic team. Now they're going to do a national team, and you're going to train for a year, and you're going to play all over the world and all over the country. And so all of a sudden, these like things just fell into my lap in some ways in terms of timing. So play for the national team. That, oh, they're starting a WNBA. They're also starting this competing league, the ABL. There's two options where you can stay here domestically and play. So my timing would have been completely different if I had just graduated a year or two earlier. The opportunities I would have had would not have been there. And then because of the popularity of the women's game, well, there's a lot more on TV. There's a lot more games to broadcast. And so all of a sudden that path kind of unfolded for me. But it's crazy to think of how different things were for players who graduated, say, 1991 or 92 versus players who've graduated 97 and later.
It's unbelievable the timing. And now the NIL timing, people are like, I just missed it. And they're like, I can't believe I just missed, but it is that timing is interesting. I don't want to go too deep on this, but just curious that documentary Dream, I think it was called Dream On, right?
Dream
That
on,
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was just a phenomenal documentary. And listeners, if you haven't seen it, I have spoken about it before, but Dream On, it just kind of chronicles the 96 women's basketball Olympic team. Now, there were obviously like whispers of the WNBA. Did you all like kind of know that like this was like the litmus test for? I mean, that's an insane amount of pressure to be under. Did everybody know? Did you know?
I think we had a feeling of it. What's kind of interesting, because the ABL was the other professional
Yeah.
league, and that was going to start in the fall, right after the Olympics, the fall of 96. And we found out about the WNBA a little bit later. Okay, that's starting in the summer of 97. I was the only player on the Olympic team. So there's 12 women on that team. I was the only one who didn't sign with the ABL. And Cheryl Swoops and Lisa Leslie ended up, even though they signed with the ABL, they ended up kind of deciding not to play, taking time off and joining me. And for a while, it was just the three of us as signed members of the WNBA. So, like, we were kind of aware that it was a litmus test, but we also just knew, like, holy cow, like every city we went to here in the US, every time we played a college team, it was open practices, autograph sessions, appearances, local news. Like, it was a nonstop sort of barnstorming tour to get to see, okay, will people buy jerseys with women's names on them? Will people come to games to watch women play professionally? And it certainly was a successful tour in that regard. But yeah, the interesting thing is everybody else was planning to play in the ABL because that had been in the works publicly at least a little bit longer.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it just it's so crazy to think about all the I just keep going back to like all the opportunities now and it's sort of like this not a well-oiled machine. You obviously have to be at the top of your game and have to be working nonstop, but it's such a clear path. And back then, I remember I had Sue Wicks on the show. We know each other now pretty well. Such a huge fan of hers. And she was like, I think I'm going to make this up. I think she was playing like, I don't know, Turkey, Italy, somewhere. And she got like a FedEx. it was like this crazy story of like, hey, do you want to play in the WNBA? And she's like, what's the WNBA? I mean, just incredible stories
Yeah,
of what you all had to go through.
most of the women who played in that first season, especially because a lot of players had gone to play in the ABL, had been overseas. And Sue is one of my dear friends, and she was my roommate when I was with the New York Liberty, one of the, as you know, funniest humans on the
Love
planet.
her.
Like we would just sit together on the bus sometimes and just be laughing our butts off. But yeah, like I knew of Sue because when I was in high school, she was an all-time leading scorer at Rutgers. Like I knew who Sue Wicks was. But then, like every player of that generation, she went overseas, disappeared, and nope, I didn't know that she was playing or what kind of player she was. And so when they're kind of building our roster, I'm like, who's this Kim Hampton? I knew Vicki Johnson because she was more a peer of mine, and knew Teresa Weatherspoon because I kind of grown up watching her. But who's Sophia Witherspoon? Like, who are these women? And then you get to practice or go get to games, you're like, holy cow, who are these women? Had just gone overseas, gotten so much better, more seasoned, and yeah, it's crazy because, of course, there were players before them who didn't get an opportunity to play in the WNBA who were incredibly talented women, and most people don't remember them unless they went and actually watched them play in college. So certainly a different era and a different climate now.
Yeah, I mean the level of play. When I get like a new fan, I try to be patient, but I the level of play just from like, I just got incredibly lucky. I was like in my 20s doing stand up in New York City. We'd go to the Liberty games, we'd get like $8 tickets. We had like $1 to our name, and then we would just kind of work our way, down into like better seats. And it was just the level of play was I mean, phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
yourself, just I mean, I mean, that whole generation. So when people are like, wow, the WNBA is really good now, I'm like, I will murder you gently. Just please don't say that because
Yeah,
it's been here the whole time.
yeah, the level of play has been really, really high for a really long time. However, is it the highest it's ever been now? Yes, it is. Like, I mean, it was really good basketball in those early days and whatever. But are is the play now, and a lot of it is the coaching and how techniques have changed and all of that. But it's always been good. It's the best it's ever been.
Yeah, it's hard to compare to. I mean, just opportunities and weight rooms and money, like all of it is just I hate comparing generations, but I will scream at people that the level of play has been amazing since day one. And
Yeah.
most of the time they don't run away. All right. So I just want to talk about this
That's
one.
that's your baseline. They don't
Yeah.
run away. We're
They don't
good.
run away. I can trap them. I can trap them and be like, listen, let me tell you this. And they're like, please get away from me. Um, the All right. So I just happened to be at the game in 99 when you had your terrible knee injury.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to talk about the knee injury, but just kind of moments in life that kind of changed the course of your life. On a very smaller level, I was playing basketball in college, blew out my back.
I've
Never
never
again.
heard someone use the phrase blew out my
Oh,
and
I
follow it
was
with back.
I destroyed my no. I like herniated a bunch of discs, couldn't play
Ooh.
again, trying to figure out like what do I do with my life, and then started doing improv comedy, which led me to stand up, which blah, blah, blah. So you have double knee, knee injury, then hurt it again. And is that when you really and then you started calling games, right? In that period when you were rehabbing, is that correct?
So I got my first opportunity not to call games, but to do studio like right after the Olympics. So 1997, 98, 99, I was part of the studio team. What Chene and Elle and Drea did this past year at the Final Four. And I got a chance to do that right out of college. Didn't know what I was doing. I was really, really bad at it. And then when I hurt my knee, I kind of stepped away from that for a little bit because I was so focused on trying to rehab and whatever. But in terms of how it kind of changes the course of things, like if I had never gotten injured, I probably would not have retired when I did. I got married in 2003, played that season, then I was just like, this this is too all-consuming, and it still hurts.
Yeah.
It's time to like move on with life. And then that's when I really started getting a ton of opportunities. Started first as a sideline reporter, then as a game analyst, and getting into what I do now, which I absolutely love. So it's interesting because of course you would never want to get hurt. Like I'd be curious to know how those years would have gone for me if I never had. But at the same time, I have no regrets on how things in my life, personally and professionally, have unfolded. And so, I do believe in the whole everything happens for a reason. So, my knees still give me problems. Hopefully, your back does not.
It only goes out when it's like times of like highest stress and I'm like, "Oh, I should probably take care of it more." It's a good, it's almost like this thing that you carry that you're like you forget, like I'll throw myself on the pickleball court and then like, 2 days later I'm like, "Oh, my back's stiff." I'm like, all right, calm down." It's
You
like,
know what gets me? So this past weekend, I'm out at my nephew's wedding, and like when you're my age, you don't have a ton of opportunities to like dance for a long time, but that was one of them. And the next day, I was like, "Oh, my knees, my knees are swollen and sore, and and they're not liking me because, there's twisting involved even when you're 6'4" trying to dance."
I would love to see video of you on the dance floor.
Oh,
I
it is something. It is
um
something.
First of all, I love to dance, but I realized a friend of mine gave me like a really good tip of like every decade that goes by, like 20s, I was like, spinning myself around. I would, just a lot of gin and tonics. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
sliding on the dance floor. Then 30s, you're like, okay, no more sliding, no more sliding. Then you hit 40, and now I've just now well into whatever. Now I just go like halfway down. Like you don't go as low. My friend's like, just stay like right around the middle. I'm like, perfect. Perfect
So it's
advice.
just all right. Well, then I should stay completely upright at my age.
You're a lot taller. I'm just saying, just balance it out. Just don't
Right.
go. No full
Okay.
splits. All right. Let's talk the special sauce behind Ryan, Holly, Rebecca. This is everybody loves you guys. It's like a dream. It's like, the dream team. How did it all come together? Like just practice?
Um, I think we do have a chemistry that was there from the very beginning. And Ryan's been with us a decade, 12 years now. So when he was coming in, Holly and I had already been working together. We were working with its play-by-play Terry Gannon, who's outstanding. He now does gymnastics and figure skating for NBC at the Olympics. And he left ESPN to go to full-time to NBC. And so we're trying to, like, Holly and I are like, who's going to be our play-by-play person? We just assumed it would be somebody else that we had worked with at ESPN. And we're told Ryan Ruocco, he's like this young up and coming person. And I remember being in my living room and Googling. First of all, I didn't know how to spell Ruocco, but who is this Ryan Ruocco guy? And he was like 25 or 26 years old at the time. And I was just like, really? Like this, what is this going to be? So our first game was in Phoenix, and we meet and we like have dinner, and just right away I'm like, I like this guy. He's just the most likable human being. He's just such a good dude with this innate curiosity. And so then like we would be on the road together, and there was a stretch where Ryan and I, Holly wasn't with us. It was during playoffs. This is maybe the third year we're together, and Holly was doing football. So we were in the early rounds of the playoffs. We're in St. Paul, Minnesota, because that's where the Lynx were playing. And there was no producer with us, no director with us. They were back in Connecticut. So it's just me and Ryan. And we're like, you don't want to just hang out in your hotel room by yourself. In a playoff series, you're there for a couple of days. So we would eat every meal together. In the mornings, we would go for a jog together. And I'm like, holy cow, this guy doesn't get on my nerves. I've never been around a person, and even in general, that just like I spend this much time with them, they don't get on my nerves. And so that's what it's been like ever since. Like when we're on the road together, we'll go to dinner, we'll get drinks. We've Holly and I laugh because we were with Ryan through his mid-20s until, now his mid-30s. And so like we knew all of what was going on in his dating life. We know the incarnations of the different women he was meeting. And we were there pretty soon after he met his current wife. Now he's got a 3-year-old daughter. Like we've watched him grow up before our eyes. We're like these proud aunts. And anyway, like our chemistry is just real. It is. We just get along so well. And hopefully that translates to our game calls as well. But I love working with that guy.
I was really hoping, not that I ever thought you were going to be like, this guy sucks, but I was really hoping that's what it sounds like. When we listen to you guys, it just sounds like the two friends, two really good friends calling the game next to each other with like brilliant basketball minds. But that chemistry is so fun. One of my like favorite things he does is when he always introduces you and he goes, Hall of Famer, Rebecca Lobo. It warms my heart every single time he does it.
Well, it makes me laugh every single time he does it. And there's sort of a story behind it. There's somebody who used to be at ESPN. I'm not going to say if they're a man or a woman or what sport they worked on. And they were in their Hall of Fame. And if they were introduced by their play-by-play person and the play-by-play person didn't say Hall of Famer, they would have it pointed out to the play-by-play that like that's what they are, that's what they need to be called. And so Ryan knew this story. So when he does it, a lot of it is as a joke. And so every time he does it, since I know the backstory, like sometimes I'll giggle more than others, but I'm just like, this is just it's just funny when you know the reason behind it. But and it's so darn endearing when my guy Ryan introduces me like that.
I love this. I love that we got the inside scoop. Yeah, no, it's completely endearing. By the way, I'm going to say you're talking about a man, obviously, and I'm going to go with the sport of football. That would be my guess. You don't have to divulge
I'll
anything.
tell you when we're no longer
You can
recording.
text me. You can text
Yeah,
me.
okay.
Yeah, no, it's hard. Play by play and color commentary, it's difficult. And I think the chemistry really obviously is huge. And then he's got his like, yeah, the you bet. I just love it. I was hoping, you guys were the other day, I saw something online, you're all in your like, Christmas pajamas doing videos. I'm like, this is so feel good. I can't stand it.
Oh, you should have seen us. So we were like, let's do this. It was actually a friend of mine, Morgan Murphy. She texts me. She's like, so are you and Ryan and Holly going to do like a Christmas photo in your matching PJs? And I was like, we weren't, but I like that idea. So I text Ryan and Holly. I'm like, you guys up for this? Immediately, yes. So Holly chooses the PJs. We order the PJs. We're in South Bend in a hotel in South Bend where it's in between again the shoot around and the game. We come down. There's like people staying there. We're in the lobby. There's people at the bar having drinks, and we're just like these three grown adults doing our thing in our PJs. Some of the stuff, the photos, we were like just asking this guy. We're like, would you mind taking a picture of us? It was so ridiculous and absurd, but we had so much fun with it.
Oh my God. It's awesome. All right, wait. All right. So this is the perfect time. I got to tell you this quick story so I went to the WNBA All-Star. This is my first All-Star game. It was so fun.
So
And
fun. There's one in Phoenix.
oh my God. Well, I was
Yeah.
like, first of all, I have to. And then because I didn't have a writing gig, so I was free. And I was like, this is perfect because I get the Olympic and the All-Star. Like it was too
It was
glorious.
magical.
It's
Yes,
magical.
yes.
And so we're staying at the hotel, like across the street from the arena because it was 795 degrees. And so we just, went to the arena and went back to the bar. I guess it was like, it was the night after, it was the night of the game. So the game happens, whatever. And I went to all of it. I went to the Friday, I went to the expo. I just like, I couldn't get enough of it. And so a bunch of friends and I were just sitting at a table. And then you and Holly and Ryan walk in. And
I think I know where this is going.
okay, this is so funny to me. First of all, a friend of mine, we were just like in the hotel the day before, and then you had just like come in with Holly or something. My friend goes, "That's Rebecca Lobo, Erin. You always wanted to meet her. Go say hi." I'm like, I'm not going up and being like, "Hey, I'm Erin." Anyway, so we were just joking
Oh,
around
you
the whole
should
time.
have, but
I
okay.
mean, so dumb, right? I'm just like, ugh. So anyway, we're sitting at the at the table. You three walk in. Now, I don't know what your side of the story was, but we just see you three walk in, and all we see is the hostess being like, there's no tables. And then I'm not exaggerating. I think every single person in the bar restaurant just stood up and was like, take our table. The amount of lesbians that were scrambling to get the side table, these three people that looked like they were like about to like, end their meal one of my friends who I just met, and now we're like lifelong friends, she's like, I'll pay their bill. Get them out. Like, it was so funny. Everyone's like, that's royalty. That's basketball royalty. You got to get them a table. I mean, the whole thing made me laugh so hard.
Oh, so this is a totally different story than the one that I internalized. So we walk into that restaurant and there is an empty booth right in the corner. So we go over, but it's got a reserved sign on it.
Oh, that's what it
And
was. Yes.
and so I
Okay.
think Holly asked somebody, and so they said we could sit down. And then the woman comes over, and we had our luggage too, because we're going right from there to catch our red eye. And but then the woman comes over, says this is reserved for someone else, and so I just get up and leave because there's very little that makes me uncomfortable, but it makes me uncomfortable when people try to pull a card of like, no, no, we you should give us this table because of X, Y, Z, you know? So I'm like, I have no part of this. So I'm like, and I'm fine to go somewhere else too. So I just go out and now I'm sitting out in the lobby and they come out. They're like, no, 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 we're good to sit down. We go back. I think we go back in and like something similar happens. We go back out. I'm like, I do not want any part of this. Eventually, I don't know what magic Holly worked or Ryan. They're both good at that. But we were able to go back in and sit down and get something to eat and drink before heading to the airport. But I just remember with my rolly bag, going in, going out, going in,
Yeah. We
going
saw
out.
you. That's right. It
Oh,
was. That's what it was. We
it was
saw
like,
you going in and out, and we're like, no, no. I just remember everyone. It was like a scene from, the movie Airplane where the things are flying up and like everyone was just scrambling to get you a table. That's what it was. This woman I was sitting next to, she went up to the hostess and she's just like one of those like, lesbos that get stuff done. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, I'm like, I hate
is there
conflict.
any other kind of
I don't
lesbian?
know.
I
I'm
mean,
not
in
that
my
efficient.
experience with my friends.
I'm not that efficient, but this was like serious, like, I'm going to go make this happen. I would have probably been like, hey, can they sit there? No. And then I would have just scurried away. But she was just like, no. Like, I think she took out her credit card. Like, it was so
Oh my
funny.
gosh, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's
Everybody was
unbelievable.
trying to get you guys a table. And it was about the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, one day I'll meet her and I'll tell you that the other side of the
Oh,
story.
I love your version of the story because my
Yeah.
version was just like, oh, what's being said? Like, let's just go somewhere.
No, everybody, at one point, I think someone was going to stand up and be like, do you want my fries? Like, take my drinks. Like, it was honestly, it was just,
They do have very good truffle fries there, so I may have said yes.
I didn't go anywhere else in Phoenix. I just literally went
Oh,
to the bar, the Palomar, and then across the street and back.
yeah. Well, that's a great bar and they have
Yeah.
great food, so you can't go wrong.
Yeah, it was just really funny. I was like, "Oh my God." I just love that like this wasn't like a normal bar and restaurant. This was like rabid like WNBA fans that like knew their shit. You know what I mean? And like knew
Yeah.
we had to get you a meal. You guys had been working all day. It was so freaking adorable. I absolutely loved it. Now you're like a professional traveler. By the time, all your playing days and all your announcing days, do you even love to travel? Like, what are you a fan of hotels, planes? Talk to me about that.
Typically, traveling is the only part of my job I do not like. And
Okay.
just because it's all about getting there to do the part that I love. And like for vacations and stuff, our family, we travel, we enjoy it, we explore. Like I love all that. It's part of my job. I don't necessarily. So, for example, last week I'm in South Bend calling UConn at Notre Dame. Get to Detroit, flights delayed, 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 delayed. Finally catch a flight. We think we might have to spend the night in Detroit, end up in South Bend at 2 a.m. It's not easy to get an Uber in South Bend at 2 a.m., blah, blah, blah. Like, but calling the game is amazing. Getting to the cities, especially in college, in the WNBA, you're in big cities, college, you're in college towns. Like that part, I don't love. I don't mind it. Like I don't get anxiety about being on an airplane. And the same thing with our hotels. Like in college cities, sometimes our hotels are not necessarily ones you might choose if you're on vacation.
Yep.
But I love calling games, and so that's the only part of it. Getting there, being away and missing things that my kids are doing at home. Like I don't love that part of it, but once we sit down to call the game, and pretty much any other time in between when I'm with Ryan and Holly, I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like you're just a plane to a train to a hotel room. Yeah, I hear you with the college town just from all the traveling I've done with stand up. Like the big cities, you're like fine, but Oh God. Like when you have to like one of my favorite places to perform is in Bloomington where University of Indiana is and getting there is it's like you have to fly into Indianapolis and then you still have like a 2 hour drive and there's like one hotel and you're like, oh God.
Yeah,
Adorable people though.
we had this experience. I think it was last year. We were doing a Baylor game, so we get to Waco, get into my room late that night, and it just reeks of BO. And I text Holly and Ryan, and I'm like, I do I change my room because it just reeks? And they're both like, ours does too. It's somebody's been in the room and it's just left the stench, or it's something about the hotel. So you're like, all right, so I'm just gonna hopefully I don't then tomorrow, and all of my clothes reek of BO. And then the next morning, as I'm like walking around the hotel to get on the side to catch the Uber, there's like somebody literally getting arrested
No.
on the road. Yeah. And so I'm just like, well, and then we get to the game, and it may have been Texas at Baylor. It wasn't the most well played shot making first half, to the point where at halftime, I'll talk to my producer, like, what do you want to talk about when we come back? What should we build a package of? And I said, there have been more charges taken in this first half than threes made. I've never done this just for my personal entertainment. Build me a charge packages. So we come back in the second half showing the 5 charges that were taken because there really wasn't much else to talk about.
It starts with
So that was
charges
our Christmas
outside of
thing.
your hotel and then charges
Yes.
on the court.
Yes. The game was criminal. Yeah, the whole thing.
I love that you have to like, I didn't even realize that. You have to kind of request and in real time build these packages for halftime.
Well, sometimes it's obvious,
Sometimes. Yeah.
like what do you want to come back with? And it's like, well, I
Yeah.
think we should come back with Hannah Hidalgo and Paige
Yeah.
Beckers and some
Yeah.
of their incredible moments. But in a game like that, where there's not a ton of positives from the first half, because it could be, oh, they've made 8 threes, let's just come back with a package of threes, whatever. Yeah, so like usually you'll talk to your producer a little bit, like because she in college case she, in NBA case he will say, all right, what do you want to talk about? And then they build, the guys in the tape room build whatever it is that you want.
A charge. A charge.
It's the only charge package I've ever done. I'm hopeful that it's the only one I will ever do. Um, but yeah, like there are those times where,
Yeah.
or Ryan and Holly and I, like some odd word or thing will happen before the game. We're like, all right, the challenge is who gets this word in to the broadcast, those kind of things. We have to keep ourselves entertained always.
Oh my God. I love this. It's like peek behind the curtain. That's just fun.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to keep yourself entertained. I mean, God, you're just like, that's the key to life, having as much fun as humanly possible. What other sport do you play? Do you shoot hoops when you're on the road? Do you play other sports?
I played sports in high school. I was a 3 sport athlete all the way through my senior year. Field hockey, if you can believe that, someone my size. It was
Wow.
hard to find a stick that was long enough. And then I was a softball player as well. I played golf before I had children, and then it was like, I don't have 4 hours to just be out like hitting a golf ball. I could maybe take that up again. I'm not sure. But I'll shoot around. I can't play, unfortunately, because like with dancing, it destroys my knees. But like I'm around basketball a lot, not only with this, but when all my kids are, I have 2 in college now and 2 in high school. But when they were in elementary through 8th grade, I would every year be coaching at least one, if not multiple kids' teams. So I was always kind of around the game in that regard.
Do they, what sports do they play? Do they?
So my 2 in college don't play sports anymore, but my oldest played volleyball. She's a very good volleyball player in high school. She's 6'3". Then my second oldest is a freshman in college. She was a 2-time state champion on her basketball team in high school, but she didn't, could have played probably Division 2 or 3 in college, decided she didn't want to. My son, he has his first high school game of the season tonight. He's a junior in high school, so I'll be doing that. And my youngest, she plays basketball. She's a freshman. So it's, it's fun and busy.
Big sports family.
Yeah.
I've been just living and dying for the volleyball. I call it the March Madness of December, that the volleyball championships. I mean, I can't get the level of athleticism is unbelievable. I mean, these
Yes.
women are getting up like I don't know, like 2 feet over the nets.
Yeah, it's
It's
incredible.
incredible.
It was a few years ago when my daughter was in high school playing, and I was like, let's go to a UConn volleyball game. UConn's only is less than an hour from where we live in Connecticut. And it was the first time I'd seen college volleyball in person, and that was the thing that blew me away. I'm like, look at the size of that woman's thighs. Look at
Yeah.
how high they can jump. Look at how strong they are. Like they are incredible athletes, and it's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, and now there's two. Now there's going to be three professional volleyball leagues. I just had these two women on that are part of Love Volleyball, and there's going to be six new cities, and just that whole sport is just like taking off, which is just so exciting. But I'm like watching with like my jaw on the floor. I'm like and it's nonstop. It's a live ball, so it's like point I played volleyball like one season in high school, and it's like you could only score points like when you were serving, and now it's
Right,
like
right, right.
it's a free for all. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
It's incredible. And the fun thing for me as a spectator of the sport, I didn't play it. We didn't have it at my high school. I didn't know really the rules. I still don't know what things mean when the
Yeah.
referees, umpires, whatever they're called, are putting their stuff up. So I'd be watching my daughter when she started playing as a freshman, and one of the other dads had literally for Dummies book, one of those big yellow books. And it was such a fun sport for me to watch because I was like, I don't know if that's the right call. I don't know what they even called. I don't know if she did the right thing or the wrong thing. Versus in basketball, you're like, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? Like volleyball for me was just such a chill sport to watch because I knew absolutely nothing about it other than you really wanted to get it to go over the net. But it was in some ways it was also a super relaxing sport just because it was like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
that's what it is. Like your mind doesn't you're like when I it's impossible for me to like I like watching stand up, but it's like so and then I've been writing on TV shows and I'm like, "Oh, that joke's coming." So I like to watch, like how you watch volleyball. I'm like, this is how I watch like sci-fi. I'm like, just take me to another planet. I like, you know what I mean? Because you're analyzing it. Like
Right, right.
so for you to watch, yeah, it's just fun. It's
It's
just a
just
lot of
fun.
fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what TV series or movies or movie do you defend while everyone calls it trash?
You know, I don't get a ton of opportunity to binge watch stuff except when I'm on the road a little bit, just because when I'm home, I'm running around so much. But this winter, my youngest daughter in particular, she's 14, she's a freshman in high school. She likes nothing more than if we sit down on the couch together at night and watch like one of the many Hallmark Christmas movies. And as I'm watching them and I like know exactly what's going to happen or whatever the case might be, they're always going to end. I love them. I love them all. Although we've only made it halfway through Hot Frosty. But
I can't, I
but
haven't
that's
done
because
that yet. I haven't done that
that
yet.
was it was getting late. That one I don't know if we're going to finish. The other ones that we've watched, we've finished. And like I I'm enjoying them, and I mostly am enjoying them because she loves them, especially if they're based on Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. We're all in, and she's like snuggled up to me, and it's just that if anybody comes at me with like, I can't believe you watch this, love them, absolutely,
Oh, bring it on. First
yeah.
of all, Hallmark Christmas movies, like Foley family runs deep. At one point, we even got my dad involved. We even got my dad sucked in because he's just like, another one of these. And then we would just sit there and watch it. I'm like, you're secretly
Oh,
enjoying all of it.
my husband watches them with us, and
Yeah.
he's like, and they're like the one who kind of, because sometimes if the older ones are home, we can get them to watch it, but my son is the only one who's like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go upstairs and play Madden or something.
I mean, it's just, exactly. It's like, but it's kind of comforting. I'm like, there's the shot of the gazebo, hot cocoa. Wait, have you seen Cluster Funk Christmas?
Cluster Funk?
Okay,
No.
Rebecca, you're gonna die.
Is this my next one?
This is I didn't realize this came out like maybe 2 years ago. It's Rachel Dratch and Anna Gasteyer from Saturday Night Live, who
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with. They wrote this movie. I think you can get it on Peacock. And it's a spoof of the holiday of the Hallmark movies, but
Okay.
also a Hallmark movie. And it is the funniest thing I've seen. It's so great because you get like the spirit of a Christmas movie, but also making fun of the Christmas movie. You're
Oh,
gonna die.
perfect.
You have to watch this.
This is so in the wheelhouse. Cluster Funk will be
Yes.
next on the to view list.
It's so good. It's just absolutely. I'm not going to say anything more about you. Just watch it
Okay.
with your daughter
Okay.
and then tell me what you think. Okay.
Okay.
Just two nerdy basketball questions. Let's do one college, one WNBA. Obviously, this college season is already like unbelievable. That UCLA game, I saw the UCLA South Carolina game, literally blew my mind. I was like, wow, is this the year for UCLA? Then you could throw 6 teams right now in the mix. But I know, and this is way too early. But if you have to bet on, if you're picking one, who's your betting? Who are you betting on? And maybe a dark horse.
Um, the team that I have been most impressed by seeing in person, I've seen UCLA on film. I've seen them practice. I haven't seen them play a game in person. But the team that I think you got to keep your eye on is Notre Dame. And they had that huge win against USC. Then they beat Texas in overtime at home. They beat UConn. And one of the reasons I say that is not only are they really good now, but Maddie Westbeld still has to rejoin the team, and she's just this incredible kind of pick and pop, experienced post player who has a WNBA future. And I just think they're already really, really good. Perhaps the best backcourt in the country with Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo. They're already really good, and then they're going to be adding this other significant piece. South Carolina obviously is phenomenal. UCLA is playing really, really well. I think as Connecticut continues to grow, I think they have a real chance to be there. With USC, unlike last year where USC had the 3 grad transfers from the Ivy Leagues, this year they're relying a little bit more on freshmen, and that's the one part of for them that I'm curious to see how much those freshmen grow to fill in the roles that they have. But I think those, and Texas is another one that's really, really good. But if you're saying who's my favorite right now, it would be Notre Dame, just because they're the one who's adding a really, really significant piece at some point.
Yeah, they looked that weekend. I think it was a couple weekends ago. Saturday, I sat down and watched USC Notre Dame,
Hmm.
and then the next day UCLA South Carolina, and I was like, this is the best weekend ever. I mean, like the level of play, it
Yes.
was just unbelievable.
And both games were sold out. And for
Yeah,
people like is you live in LA, that
yeah,
doesn't happen in LA. It doesn't happen. It doesn't
no.
happen for the Sparks. It doesn't happen for the college teams. And that weekend it did, and it was so, so significant for the women's sport.
Yeah, those one weekend I was away. I was like, I cannot. I would have been at
Of course.
literally at both games, but I thought the USC was in particular was interesting because I thought the amount of like celebrities, I felt like USC just like got in their heads. I felt like they were so stressed out. I felt like I'm a UCLA. Well, UConn's number one, UCLA is number two. So I'm not like I don't really cheer for USC, but I felt almost kind of protective and bad for the players in a way. They're looking over and it's Michael B. Jordan, Candace Parker, like Jason Sudeikis, like
Snoop was there. Yeah.
Snoop is wearing a Juju like suit, and I was like, how do they separate? You know what I mean? I'm like, that to me was like a lot. I felt like,
And
oh God.
And you know what's interesting? Because I felt the same way. Like especially when you play at a school where you don't experience regular sellouts or whatever. Sometimes when you're at home and you have that many people there rooting for you, it's harder than it is for Notre Dame, who's used to maybe not playing in front of celebrities, but used to playing in front of 8 or 10,000 people or whatever the case might be. And it happens too with student sections, because in some colleges you don't typically play in front of a lot of students. And sometimes when you do, it's harder for the home team. Like you have more friends there. You're trying to play well for them. There's just like that whole piece of it. But yeah, I don't know if that affected USC, but it certainly didn't affect Notre Dame in that matchup.
I know Notre Dame. Of course, I wasn't cheering for them, but I do appreciate good basketball, and that was pretty. As much as I was like, yeah, but I mean, listen, they're under pressure too. You've got Enrique and Skylar, and like you've got all those, future Hall of Famers sitting right there,
Yeah.
and then they just crushed it. Well, it's going to be another absolutely fantastic season. Okay, WNBA. What are you looking forward to the most in 2025, and what do you want to leave behind?
In the WNBA.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think we want to leave behind? Let's leave behind the nonsense. Let's leave behind the false narratives. Let's like a lot of new fans, a lot of new people talking about the WNBA. Love that. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to everyone. But some of the made up stuff, and in particular, the whole, everybody's out to get Caitlin Clark. They're beating the heck out of her. Like that whole narrative hopefully is gone. So I'm looking forward to leaving that behind. What I'm looking forward to, I think like there's a lot to look forward to. I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to what Indiana looks like this year, what pieces they get in free agency, even more so than what they can get in the draft. I'm eager to see like New York as well. They're retaining most of their key players. What happens in Vegas? Is Kelsey Plum going to be back in Vegas? Is
Mm.
Kelsey Plum going to be somewhere else? That changes things for that team if any big pieces shift around. But free agency is always a really, really fun time in the W because as good as a draft is, it's a rare rookie that makes a huge impact. We saw a number of them this past year, but some of these teams that were in the playoffs but not championship contenders, Indiana would be a primary one of interest for me. Is can they get a big time free agent? How different would Indiana look if they were able to sign Neko Gwumike or if they were able to trade for Satu Sabali or like there's just February 1st, I think, is the first day of free agency. That's also for 2 years when we would have our free agency special, the day Tom Brady announced he was coming back out of retirement. And so our free agency special would like get shorter and shorter on ESPN because they had to talk more about Tom Brady. But anyway, so hopefully he doesn't come out of retirement again on
Oh,
February 1st. We'll just get to do our special and talk about whatever, teams can just make a huge splash like the New York Liberty did 2 years ago. So looking forward to that.
so exciting. I was looking at all the players that are like, unrestricted, all of the Connecticut Sun. Literally,
Right.
like that team could completely look like we've pretty consistently had those same players on for years now. And yeah, it's so exciting. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, San Francisco, the Valkyrie's gonna grab, I'm like, where's Jewel Lloyd gonna go? I mean, she
Right.
wants out. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a huge pickup. Okay, given like the clout now and the agency and the money that these collegiate players have, do you think there's ever going to be like an Eli Manning trade,
Yeah.
draft day?
That has been brought up a fair amount recently because there were reports that Paige Beckers doesn't want to play in Dallas. And when we did the game in South Bend, we asked Paige because she could go back to UConn for another year, and she
Yeah.
said her plans are still to enter the WNBA draft, but or not play next year. She could also not enter the draft, not play college ball, play in Unrivaled as a hypothetical, and then be in the following year's draft. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen this year. It just doesn't strike me that that's the vibe of it. But certainly the women's players have a lot more power than they ever have. But a player like Paige and some of the ones who do have that extra year of eligibility, they certainly have a little bit more power. Like if Caitlin Clark didn't want to go to the Indiana Fever last year, she could have been like, all right, then I'm just going to go back for that, COVID year and play again. So there's definitely those things in the mix now. But we'll see.
I mean, that's my dream. I want, but I also don't want like, if I had my druthers, obviously I live in LA now. Sparks are my number two team. If Paige was like, Heisman, no, no Dallas, I want to go to LA. Oh God, that would be a dream. But I
Yeah.
also don't want, you know, I also don't want like the backlash. Like I got very lucky because I'm a born and raised New York Giants fan and I was a huge Eli Manning fan and I was like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest draft day of my life." But like I also don't want the back like we already had all this nonsense last year. So I don't want like, people then like targeting Paige for be like, "Oh, yeah, So yeah.
I don't think you'd have any of that. I don't think you'd have it from in this particular case. I don't
Yeah.
think you'd have it from the fans. I don't think you'd have it from the players. I think players are all for other player empowerment.
Okay.
So say hypothetically, she was like, you know what, I really don't want to go to Dallas. Dallas doesn't make a trade. She could be like, all right, then I'm just not going to declare since I don't have to. I'm not going to declare till the following year. And I don't think any players would hold that against her either, I think it'd just be like, oh, okay, she's, doing what's best for her and whatever. But yeah, I do wonder, like, just because it likes to feed on itself,
Yeah.
what will happen this year? Like, what will be the thing that's blown completely out of proportion and that those of us who've been covering or following the league for a long time will be like, hmm,
Where did
what are
that
you
come
talking
from?
about? Yeah. But okay, it's got you know, all the talk shows and stuff talking about it. So I guess in some ways it's good.
Yeah, I thought some of it was good, and then it got so far out of like the thing that I just couldn't come back to was just like you've never people have obviously never seen women play basketball. You know what I mean? I'm like the targeting. I'm like there are like the hard fouls is just part of the game. That was really to me shocking. I was like, oh, I guess we're really dealing with people that literally have never seen a game in their life. You know?
Well, I think it's that, and I think the other piece of it is, and I do think the WNBA needs to clean this up a little bit, but like the rules are different than in the NBA. In the WNBA, you can play more physically than you can in the NBA. In the WNBA, they allow a lot more physicality off the ball, on the ball than they do in women's college basketball. So I think people who would only watch college, or even if they watch NBA, then they go over and are like, wow, this is really physical. Yeah, this is what the WNBA game has been for a long time. Sue Bird is the one who said, like, if people ask me what it was like to play in the WNBA, I said it's like the NBA of the 90s. You know, it's just
Yeah.
this really physical sport. And so I do, though, hope that the rules focus changes a little bit, makes it a little bit cleaner so that things are a little bit prettier. And because the players are so talented now, we got to give them a little bit more freedom to showcase that.
Yeah, it's so exciting. All right, just last comment. WNBA, we have Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, playing overseas. Is this was this the Rebecca Lobo dream sequence? Is this like the access, the amount of opportunities? Can I relax? Is what I'm trying to ask you. Is women's basketball safe? Are we good?
I don't think it's ever good to relax in the year where there's a CBA negotiation.
Oh, true,
That's
true.
that always worries me. So they're in preliminary talks now. You know, the the players opted out of the CBA, so they're bound by the current bargaining agreement through the 25 season. But I am always nervous, always when there's a CBA. So like you should feel good until the end of the 25 season. And if they haven't come to an agreement, then I think it's okay to worry a little bit. But it is pretty amazing. I mean, there's women no longer have to go overseas. And for most women, as great of an experience as some of those places are, they're not choosing that path. They would much prefer to stay here with their loved ones and play domestically, but those opportunities hadn't been there outside of the WNBA prior to this. So it's a super exciting time to be a fan, to be a player, to be all of that. But yeah, I always worries me a smidge when until they have the new agreement signed.
Well, I wasn't thinking about that, so thank you for putting that on
You're
my
good.
plate.
You're good until September of 25.
Okay, so I can
So
partially
just
sleep until
just defer your anxiety. Put an alert on your phone. Anxiety can go up in September of
Okay,
25.
September 1st anxiety. Here we go. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Also, just, I'm going to speak for every WNBA fan out there because I have full permission. Thank you for help building this league. It has been an absolute joy to watch you play from day one, and now we get the pleasure of hearing you and you bet on the sidelines. It's so fun. It's so fun.
We love it, and we're just so glad that there's now this renewed excitement and interest because people are seeing what we've known all along, right? That this
Yeah.
sport is phenomenal, and we're so lucky to get to call it.
Rebecca Lobo, everybody. I mean, I feel like we got like some inside scoop. It was like so unexpected, yet so much fun. Okay, basketball fans, we are knee deep in the college season, and there are some great matchups literally every single week. So I will keep you, informed of all this stuff. But as they say, check your local listings. I mean, the matchups like are pretty much fire every week. Also, we have two pro leagues are about to start. We have Unrivaled, that is Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart's league. That's 3-on-3. That league starts on January 17th. And most of those games are going to be televised like TNT, TBS. And then we have Athletes Unlimited. Don't forget about this. This is regular basketball. This is 5-on-5. That starts on February 5th. I will, give you a heads up on that. I'm going to be doing some deep dives on both leagues and college hoops over on my YouTube page. This is exciting news. I'm going to be doing a lot more content on my YouTube page. That's Erin Foley Comic. I will put, that's the handle. That's, whatever, youtube.com/Erin Foley comic. I'll put the link to that in my show notes. Lots more content coming your way on YouTube. And I'll be rolling out a Patreon for subscribers. So, listen, so much fun stuff planned for 2025. And that is our show, Herlighters. Please go on Apple or Spotify and rate and review the show. It really helps with sponsorships and numbers and all that really important stuff. Fans, friends, family, have the best week of your life.